Today's lesson is making travel arrangements. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike.
And I'm Sam.
And today we are going to be looking at a couple of dialogues on the topic of making travel arrangements. Are you a pretty good traveler, Sam? Do you like the whole process of going on a long journey?
That's a hard question because I am a very stressed out traveler.
Okay.
I love to travel, but I'm the one who I am like constantly checking, where are we going? How are we going to get there? Like if I could just put out a whole big itinerary, then I'd be quite happy. But that's very opposite to like how my husband travels, where he's like, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
So it creates a little bit of stress when I'm trying to travel.
I guess in that situation, you kind of have to do that because if you were like your husband, you might just end up sitting at the airport for days.
We would do nothing.
No one booked a plane ticket or something like that. But you're right, travel can be stressful, right? There's all these little places where things can go wrong. There's all these details to take care of and be on top of. But do you find that at the end of the journey, when you get home, you're able to relax? Or do you feel kind of you're always analyzing what you did or the problems that you had? Do you find that takes away from your enjoyment of the trip in total?
Yes, that's something I'd like to work on because I always say when I come back from a vacation, I am always like, oh man, I need a vacation from my vacation. Because like my brain was just nonstop checking, especially now with kids. Because like before, if I skipped lunch or whatever, that's just me. I can just deal with it. But now with kids, it's like now we're in a new place and I still have to make sure that they have every single thing that they need.
True.
So yeah, it's a little bit stressful.
Okay. I often feel the same way, but then sometimes at the end I try to think, all those things I worried about, none of them actually happened, right? So that's something I try to remember more and more as I do this. But let's look at some common travel arrangement situations. The first one we're going to deal with in our first dialogue here is contacting a hotel. That's a pretty good thing to do before you leave home.
Making travel arrangements.
1.
Contacting a hotel. Greg and Vera's flight gets delayed, so Greg calls their hotel to discuss the situation. Hello, this is Greg Hudson. My wife and I have a reservation at your hotel starting tonight, but our flight has been delayed and we might not arrive until tomorrow.
Okay, Mr. Hudson, just a moment. Yes, I see your reservation here. Of course, your booking is still valid, but our policy requires at least 24 hours notice for cancellations, so the first night's charge may still apply.
I understand. Is there any way to adjust our reservation or get a partial refund?
If you can provide proof of your flight delay, we can offer a partial refund. Unfortunately, however, we're fully booked, so we can't shift your stay.
That's fair. I can provide proof when we arrive.
All right, Mr. Hudson. Sounds good. Safe travels.
大家好，第一部分介绍形容词 valid， 它的意思是有效的、正式认可的、正当的。例如 The warranty on this car is valid for 5 years from the time of purchase. 这辆车的保修自购买日起5年内有效。或者 Most passports are valid for 10 years from the date of issue. 大多数护照自签发之日起10年内有效。继续看到动词 adjust 表示调整、调节、改变点点点以适应。例如 You can adjust the chair to make it more comfortable. 你可以调整椅子让它更舒适。或是 Tom adjusted the volume on the TV so that he could hear it better. Tom 调整了电视的音量以便听得更清楚。后面看到形容词 partial， 它的意思是部分的。例如 I only received a partial refund when I returned the blouse. 我退回这件衬衫时只收到部分退款。也可以说 What Rosie suggested is only a partial solution to the problem. Rosie 的建议只能解决部分问题。再来介绍名词 refund， 表示退款、返还金额。我们可以说We do not offer refunds on this type of item. 这款产品我们不接受退款。又或者说 I requested a refund for the sweater because it was too small. 我要求将这件毛衣退款，因为它太小了。另外补充这个字当动词使用时，也能念作 refund， 表示退款。造个句子 The airline refunded us for our tickets when our flight was canceled. 我们的航班被取消时，航空公司退还了我们的机票费用。另外一句 The restaurant manager apologized and refunded the customers. 该餐厅经理道歉并退款给顾客。往下看到 shift 这个单字，它是动词，它的意思是改变、转变、移动。例如 Responsibility for the project will be shifted to the new manager next month. 该专案的责任将在下个月转移给新的经理。再看一个例子 The fashion retail industry has shifted to online sales. 时尚零售业已转往线上销售。
All right, so yes, dialogue number 1, contacting a hotel. Let's look at what's going on here. It says Greg and Vera's flight gets delayed. Oh, no. So Greg calls their hotel to discuss the situation. I can already feel Sam getting a little more stressed sitting here next to me. I would be stressed if my flight got delayed. That means there's been a problem with the airline or the airport, the weather. We don't know, but the flight will not be leaving when it's supposed to. It will be leaving later. It's been delayed. The time has been pushed back, so of course they will be arriving later, so everything might be affected by that, and that's the situation that Greg is having to deal with here. The dialogue begins with Greg saying, "Hello, this is Greg Hudson. My wife and I have a reservation at your hotel starting tonight, but our flight has been delayed, and we might not arrive until tomorrow." So this is a very good, smart, and responsible thing to do. I imagine you could probably do this by email today, but a more direct way would be to call the hotel. So he's calling the hotel. He explains the situation. They have a reservation. They're supposed to stay there tonight, but the flight will be late, and we might not arrive until tomorrow. He's trying to avoid here, I guess, paying for a night at the hotel when he won't be at the hotel, and maybe even pushing back the leaving dates, right? We're supposed to arrive on Monday and leave on Thursday, but now we're going to arrive on Tuesday, and we might be leaving on Friday. He's making sure this is all okay with the hotel.
Yes, and so he is talking to the hotel receptionist, and that's just the person at like the front desk who handles all of these check-in, check-out, reservations, all of that kind of stuff. And so the hotel receptionist says, "Okay, Mr. Hudson, just a moment." So again, if you're sitting there, they probably have to type it up, pull up the little like reservation.
Computer noises.
Then the receptionist says, "Yes, I see your reservation here. Of course, your booking is still valid, but our policy requires at least 24 hours notice for cancellations. So the first night's charge may still apply." Okay, so the first thing that the receptionist says to kind of ease Greg's nerves is that the booking is still valid, meaning that reservation is still available, it's still okay. If something is valid, it hasn't expired, it hasn't gone away, it is something that you can still use. So saying, yes, your reservation is here, your reservation is still okay, you will be able to check into the hotel, but unfortunately, you have to kind of tell them 24 hours in advance if you wanted to cancel or change. Again, this is part of where I get so stressed about things because everything is kind of linked to each other on a vacation. So your hotel is dependent on your flight, and so if your flight gets delayed, then everything gets pushed back, and But she said it's still okay. You can still come to the hotel, no problem. They just might still get charged for that first night, even if they're not there.
I guess because they're not calling with more than 24 hours notice. That means 24 hours or a day in advance. So if it was a day and a half before, no problem. If it's 12 hours before you're supposed to get here, well, that's not enough time, so we're still going to have to charge you for that. Greg, he understands, so he says, I understand. Of course, that means, I understand the words you're saying, but also I see your point, right? As a hotel, you're a business. You can't just let people cancel an hour before they're supposed to be here. So I understand the policy and the logic behind this. Then he says, is there any way to adjust our reservation or get a partial refund? So even though we can't use it and you're going to charge us, can we make a small change here? Can we get a say if we're supposed to be there for 4 nights, but we're only staying for 3, but we're paying for 4, can we get a better room or something like that? Something to sort of offset the money that we're going to be losing by paying for this extra night, or maybe a partial refund. So to adjust things is to change them slightly. So as I said, maybe get a slightly better room or something like that for the lower price, or get a partial refund. He was actually hoping for a full refund of that first night's stay that they won't be there for. A refund is when you get your money back for something that you've paid for. If you buy a product from the store and get it home and find that it's broken, you can probably take it back, show that you bought it there the day before, and they'll say, oh, we're sorry, we didn't know this was broken, here's your money back. That kind of thing. That would be a refund. A partial refund will you get some of your money back. Okay, so we're not going to give you 100% of what you paid, but we'll give you half, or we'll give you 75% or something like that. Partial meaning part of the whole, not the entire thing, but part of it. So some money back, in other words. Can I do something like that, please? Maybe, please?
So then the receptionist says, if you can provide proof of your flight delay, we can offer a partial refund. I already feel that's pretty nice policy because I feel like in general it'd be like, well, we could give you maybe a free breakfast and that'd be about it.
Right.
But they said if you can prove that, yes, your flight was really delayed, it wasn't your fault, it was weather or whatever, then we can offer a partial refund. Unfortunately, however, we're fully booked, so we can't shift your stay. So we have this word shift here, and that means to kind of change positions slightly. If you're like sitting in a chair and you feel not comfortable, you might need to shift. Or if you can't see the board, you might have to shift your chair over a little bit so that you can see. But here he's using it as, okay, again, maybe we are booked from Monday to Friday, but since we're missing Monday night, can we maybe shift our stay from Tuesday to Saturday? Now, the hotel is fully booked, so you can't shift it another day because there's just no rooms, and that room that you have, somebody needs it the day that you're already supposed to leave, so there's no way that you can shift your stay. So maybe partial refund, not being able to shift your stay.
Yeah, okay. Or maybe to change them from a normal room to a better room or something. They can't shift you or move you into that room because that room has already been taken by someone else. So, yeah, we can't really do much for you in that way because the hotel is 100% full. It's fully booked. Greg, understanding, he says, that's fair. I understand. You know, I don't feel like I'm being treated badly by you in any way. I understand. He says, that's fair. And he says, I can provide proof when we arrive. So they also asked if you can have proof from the airline. So basically a letter from the airline saying, yes, it's our fault that Greg is late. It wasn't because he didn't take a taxi or he was wasting time. No, it's our fault. We had a problem with the airplane or a problem at the airport. It's not the customer's fault. So that's the proof that they want to see, because I guess some people would lie just to save some money. So he can bring that. He'll get that from the airline and bring that to get that partial refund. And so the receptionist says, all right, Mr. Hudson, sounds good, and then wishes him safe travels. You could also use the French term bon voyage, which just is a kind, friendly way of saying have a good trip. So safe travels, and hopefully they will, even if their travels will be slightly delayed. All right, that's the first paragraph. Let's listen to part 2, which is all about adjusting an airport pickup.
2. Adjusting an airport pickup. Greg and Vera also need to adjust their airport pickup, so Vera calls the shuttle company.
Hi, this is Vera Hudson. My husband and I booked an airport pickup with your service, but our flight has been delayed. We need to update our pickup time.
Of course, Mrs. Hudson. Let me call up your reservation. Yes, here it is. What's your new arrival time?
We are now scheduled to land at 9:40 a.m. tomorrow.
Understood. We can reschedule your driver for the new time at no extra charge. However, please reconfirm once your flight schedule is finalized.
Got it. I'll do that before our departure.
Okay, have a good flight, and we'll see you tomorrow.
第二部分介绍名词 pick up， 指的是接人、接送、提货、取餐。举例来说 June requested a taxi pickup in front of her apartment building. June 预约了计程车在她的公寓楼前接她。又或者说 A delivery service will make the pickup at your office tomorrow morning. 快递将于明天早上在您的办公室取货。最后看到 shuttle 这个单字，它 它是名词，表示往返两地之间的交通工具。我们可以说 The airport shuttle leaves the hotel every 45 minutes. 旅馆的机场接驳巴士每45分钟一班。最后一个例子 There is a shuttle that runs from the hotel to the amusement park. 饭店到游乐园之间有往返接驳车。
Okay, we are back, and we're still with Greg and Vera, our intrepid travelers. Their journey didn't get off to the best start. They had a bit of a delay because of the airline's problem. They had to try to change their hotel booking and couldn't really, so they'll lose a bit of money there. But hopefully that's the last problem they're going to face, but I get a feeling it's not, because part 2 is about adjusting an airport pickup. A pickup, notice it's one word there, not pick up, but pickup, so we're treating it here as a noun. That is basically an arranged time to be collected by someone and taken somewhere, or picked up by someone. When you call a taxi or an Uber and you kind of set it for the future, come to my house at 12 o'clock and we will go to the airport, you've arranged a pickup or a time to be met by someone who will be taking you somewhere. So that's what they're doing here. And yes, remember their flight was delayed, so the time that the car will pick them up at the airport they're going to, that will also have to be delayed, right? If the flight is going to be 6 hours late, they don't want the driver to be sitting there with a taxi or whatever for 6 hours waiting for them. So they have to change this. As Sam said, every time you delay something, everything else after that also has to be delayed and changed.
Yes, and so now we have a conversation between Vera and the customer service representative, and it says Greg and Vera also need to adjust their airport pickup, so Vera calls the shuttle company. So the shuttle company, this word shuttle, is basically a car that will take you from one place to another. You don't need to rent a car. It's not like hiring a private car to drive you around. It's usually a kind of company car that might be connected to the hotel or possibly the travel agency that you book through. And basically the idea is it will take you from one place to another, and it's usually free or complimentary or cheaper than some other options. So it will move you from one place to another, and it's a word that you come into contact a lot when you're dealing with travel, because there will be an airport shuttle or maybe a shuttle to the hotel, or maybe a shuttle from the hotel to some main area for shopping or something like that.
I often say a shuttle bus,
Yes,
right? Because sometimes it's a bigger vehicle.
Yeah, so that's a good word to know, because again, if your hotel or airlines or travel company provides shuttles, that might be a cheaper, better way to kind of get around than other options like hiring a car or taking a taxi. So here we have Vera, and she says, "Hi, this is Vera Hudson. My husband and I booked an airport pickup with your service, but our flight has been delayed. We need to update our pickup time." So just a brief recap of what's happening. Can we change our time?
All right, so she's talking to the customer service representative, basically a person whose job it is to answer phone calls and emails when customers have problems. They are there to service them or give them service. They're working for the company to make sure customers are happy and any problems they have can be solved quickly if possible. So the customer service representative says, "Of course, Mrs. Hudson," probably looking up her name on the computer. "Let me call up your reservation." Yes, here it is. So he sees the name, he sees the credit card number, the time it's all been arranged for, everything that they've, planned and organized before. "What's your new arrival time?" So the customer service agent or representative already knows the problem. So what are we going to be doing? How late will you be? And Vera says, "We're now scheduled to land at 9:40 a.m. tomorrow." So maybe it was supposed to be 10 p.m. today, but they've been delayed up to 12 hours or something. So basically, this is the new time we're going to be getting there. And the customer service representative says, "Understood." That's another way of saying, "I got it. No problem. We can reschedule your driver for the new time at no extra charge." Well, that's good news. So they're changing things, but it won't cause a problem. At least they won't have to pay more because of this change. However, the customer service representative, or rep, as we often shorten that word to, the customer service rep says, "However, please reconfirm once your flight schedule is finalized finalize. So there's been a delay now. There could be another delay. If they're being delayed by the weather, those things are unpredictable. So they're basically saying, like, we can change this now, but let us know that this is the final change. So we're not waiting for you or something else doesn't happen. So reconfirm once your flight schedule is finalized. Once the airline says this is when you are leaving for sure, they will then call this company, the shuttle company, and say, yes, that new time is the correct time. And then everything will be finalized. If things are finalized, they're decided, they're finished, they're done. When you finalize your plans, you don't expect to change those plans because that's it. That is the plan. We've set it up that way. We're drawing a line under it. It is finished. It is done. And Vera says,
got it. I'll do that before our departure. So, yes, she understands. That's another, again, there's a lot of this, I understand. Well, there's different ways to say that. Yeah, right? So here's Vera says, got it. And I'll do that before our departure. It just means to leave. You're leaving. And that's the word that, again, that you see all the time at airports. You've got arrivals, to get there, to get to somewhere. And you've got departures, to leave or to go away from that place. So before their departure, before the plane actually takes off and leaves, I will make sure that I call you again and say, yes, for sure, this is the time we're supposed to arrive, so this is the time that we need the pickup. And then the customer service rep says, okay, have a good flight, and we'll see you tomorrow.
And there we go. So that's all set up. So hopefully all of the other details that have changed because of this delayed flight will take care of themselves, and it seems that they should be on their way a little later than they planned, and it might cost a bit more with that hotel. That was unfortunate, but hopefully they will eventually reach their hotel a little bit tired, but happy to finally be where they want to be. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for today, but we do want to go over to our Chinese teacher, so let's do that now.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。在课文第一部分的对话里， Greg 和 Vera 的班机延误，他们联系预定的饭店，说明当天没办法入住。那饭店接待员解释，至少要提前24小时通知才能取消预定，因此可能还是需要收取第一晚费用。Greg 这时候问对方 Is there any way to adjust our reservation or get a partial refund? 有没有办法可以调整我们的预定，或者是获得部分退款吗？好，那这边他用到动词 adjust 来表达调整，还有用到 partial 来形容部分的。那我们分别来补充这两个单字的字根。首先看到 adjust 它的字首字根，当我们看到 just J-U-S-T 或者是 J-U-D 或是 J-U-R 这一类字根，它有正确的判断的意思。那很多跟法律相关的字都带有这一类字根，像 judge 是法官，它也可以当动词来表达判决评断，还有 jury 是陪审团。那我们看到在 adjust 这个字当中，它的字首 AD 表示朝向， just 表示正确的。当我们在调手表时间啊，或是调音量的时候，就是要把它朝正确或者是适当的状态来做调整。那这样子也许可以联想到 adjust 它有调整调节的意思，或者是表达改变以适应什么什么。顺便补充两个这一类字根的单字。第一个Justified 它的字根 just 表示正确的， ify 是动词字尾，合在一起 justify 表示使合理化，或者是证明什么什么是正当的。第二个补充的是 prejudice 它的字首 pre 表示事先，字根 jud 表示评断， ice 是名词字尾，事先对某人事物就做出了评断，应该很容易联想到 prejudice 它有偏见成见的意思。接着我们来看 partial 它的字根。我们知道 part 这个字当名词表示部分，当动词有分开的意思，那它当字根则有分开、部分、一方或是比率的语义。在 partial 这个字当中，字根 part 表示一方， ial 是形容词字尾，那就可以用偏向一方来联想 partial 它表示部分的、不完全的或是偏袒的。好，顺便补充两个有相同字根的单字。第一个Depart 它的字首 de 表示从什么离开，字根 part 表示分开，那合在一起 depart 就表示出发离开动身。 第二个补充的是 participate， 它的字根 part 表示部分， CIP 表示拿或是取， ATE 是动词字尾，那拿取其中一部分就表示有参与其中，所以 participate 就表示参与参加的意思。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天单字吧。
Valid. I need to get a new passport soon because my current one is valid for just a few more months. Adjust.
You can adjust the volume for the TV with this button.
Partial. Hal thinks that Peter's idea will only provide a partial solution to the problem. Refund. If your travel plans change, you can request a refund within 24 hours of buying your ticket. Shift. The team shifted priorities after reviewing the project. Pickup. What time is the pickup for the school trip to the museum? Shuttle. The hotel has a free shuttle that travels to and from the airport.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Sam.
See you next time.